Hello and welcome to this special podcast series which takes a look at cybersecurity during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Peter Ballant from Technicon, and in the last episode we talked with SPARTA coordinator Florent Kishna about some of the software tools that have gained in popularity since the COVID outbreak. He praised them for efficiency and convenience, but went on to explain that teams using these tools may not have the opportunity for real brainstorming since everyone is in different locations. This prompted the question, will this ever change? Here's Florent.
I don't have a grasp for this, and to be honest, this is still an area where I feel a bit wary. I'm not quite sure we can do this. So we will need to continue to experiment with this because one of the errors that we could do, especially in Western Europe nowadays, is think that the pandemic is over and that we should resume back to normal. There is no normal anymore, and the faster we can understand and assimilate and adapt to this statement, then the better off we will be. So we'll need to adapt to this, and we'll need to figure out how those creative endeavors, such as brainstorming sessions, can happen either remotely or in a place where we can ensure the safety of everyone effectively. And we've had a number of internal discussions about this. We're experimenting with things such as brainstorming sessions in the same room but on different areas of the rooms, and trying to structure some of those sessions throughout these types of constraints. Again, this is something where that makes me worried because our business and SPARTA strongly believe that creativity is a major point of enabling strategic autonomy in Europe in cybersecurity. So we need to make sure that we don't lose that creativity and hopefully transform the constraints that are the constraints of this new situation into creative outlets that we can leverage throughout. What's at stake here is cybersecurity nowadays, because you've seen me talk about the use of additional tools to enable creative discussions, to enable our craft as computer scientists, as electronics engineers. But the downside of this is because there are so much more happening in cyberspace, there is so much more at stake in terms of cybersecurity. This is not a new trend. This is something that has been going on for the better past of 50 years. But still, there is a significant uptick in use here. And so there's also a significant uptick in risk. And we've seen attacker behaviors change quite drastically due to this to the pandemic. So that's the other side of the equation. And we need to make sure that we keep also in mind the fact that SPARTA and what we're trying to achieve in terms of capabilities is made even more important by the current situation and by the pandemic.
Why is it that the hacking activity is subject to rise at this point? What's the setting that gave the hackers the opportunity to say, all right, I'm going for it now?
Well, it's enlightening to see hacking activities or cyber attack activities by specialized groups, because that's the real threat. As an economic activity, what they're trying to maximize is return on investment. They're working under the assumption that with minimal investment they can get maximal returns. And part of how we can get creative in cybersecurity is to change that balance for the attacker and for the defender. At the moment, and with the pandemic, what has happened is that the size of the market, the size of the return, of the possible returns, has significantly improved, has significantly augmented. There's much more systems, much more data, much more assets that are being put online as a result of the pandemic. So that means that the same investment may yield a much higher return nowadays since the pandemic. So this is a basic, low-level view, economic view, and perhaps a bit oversimplified of how people and how cyber attack groups function. But this is mainly describing the dynamics of why people have been paying more attention to cyber attacks over the past few months now. There's simply more to gain.
What have you, as the coordinator of SPARTA, learned as a result of the world grinding to a halt as it did?
Well, I've learned a couple of things. First of all, Sparta and what we're trying to do in Sparta is a really important mission. We've seen the importance of strategic autonomy nowadays, especially with the interruption of the supply chains that has been going on through the pandemic. We see how much we can only rely on ourselves when it comes to the sovereignty and the decisions that we need to make as a group and as a culture in Europe. I've seen also, so that's the first part of it. The second part of it is that we've seen how much different groups, different countries react under duress, and we've seen how much the values and the values of the European Union are a beacon throughout the world in situations where it's easy to attack science, to attack society, to attack inclusiveness, to attack diversity, and I think that there's definitely a lot of lessons to be learned for us as Europeans when we see the world make or major countries in the world make turns in directions that are contrary to the core values that we hold as European citizens today. So that was the second aspect, and finally, on a more micro level, more operational level, we've been very fortunate to operate in a world and with partners who have been very agile in reconfiguring their activities to take advantage of the new situation, to take advantage of digital tools, to make sure that we remain committed to advancing the results of the project that we have. And so for this, I'm very grateful that we were able to do this. I think there's some kind of serendipity here at play too, and definitely some luck. If this was not a computer science project, and if it was I don't know, an archaeology project, we would not be able to get together on a digging site because of confinement issues, and that would just end any discussions about continuing work and transitioning to online tools. So yeah, kind of fortunate also to be operating in a domain where this conversation is even possible to start with.
I'd like to read you a quote, and this is from the World Economic Forum. "We should prepare for a COVID-like global cyber pandemic that will spread faster and further than a biological virus with an equal or greater economic impact." What do you make of this?
I think this is something that is also in the air, and I think it's good that the World Economic Forum is raising the alarm and making sure that this topic is front and center in some of the discussions that we're having. These are issues that we see that we've seen happening over the past decade, and we see the acceleration of contagion, to continue on the analogy, around cyber attacks and vulnerabilities here and there. I've just seen, to take an example, I've just seen the Ripple 20 vulnerabilities that are being disclosed at Black Hat in the next few weeks. These vulnerabilities are affecting a very wide number of components. These are software 0 days that are very serious, and where they can have a very wide-ranging impact on a number of devices that are surrounding us, whether we know it or not. And so, in a sense, to get to that example, what you see here is a vulnerability into systems that are surrounding us but that we're not seeing anymore, and that are vital to our operations. Systems such as not only printers, but also or networking devices, but also home automation, things that are powering our devices, our offices, our homes, medical systems, things that are powering our governments and national security sectors. So we kind of, as in biology, we kind of forget the omnipresence of those complex systems that are powering our daily lives. And as in biology, we tend to assume some kind of resilience where actually, that resilience, although it is existent to a certain level, when it breaks, it can have catastrophic effects. So as in biology, I think that the World Economic Forum is quite correct in pointing out the fact that we're on a trend where the level of resilience of our systems, of our invisible systems around us, are being strained more and more, and that the inevitable course of this is that at some point things will break, and so now is a race to provide ways to let's say to find a vaccine, or at least some kind of configuration where we can ensure, either through protection or through isolation or through reaction, that we can contain the cyber pandemic that the World Economic Forum is warning about, because we know it's happening. So we need to be in place so that we can do this. And unfortunately, we feel quite good about the fact that SPARTA is producing some of those results. We're not there yet, but there's some very significant outcomes that I think give us some confidence about how we can address the future and this particular risk.
And speaking of SPARTA outcomes, next time around, we'll spend some time talking about some of the more recent developments in SPARTA.
Excellent.
Thanks for keeping us up to date, and I look forward to talking again real soon.
Yeah, I appreciate this. Thank you for having me on, Peter.
Thanks again. See you next time. For more information about the SPARTA project, go to sparta.eu. This podcast has been brought to you by Technicon. The SPARTA project has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program under Grant Agreement 830892.